And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I find it really interesting sometimes how much my tastes differ from a lot of other gamers. For example, Politico by Small Box Games gets a lot of positive press, but it's so far the one I like the least of the bunch, while Temple doesn't get as much, and this was a game I actually found quite interesting. It comes in a small box, courtesy of Small Box Games, but I really like this size. It's a pretty neat box. The rest of the components aren't quite so well done. The board itself is a cloth mat with a heavy printing on it, and it works fairly well, but if you don't put it away properly, it will not lay flat on the table. It just, you have to really work at getting it flat on the table. Other than that, the game comes with a pile of cards, some wooden curse tiles, and pawns. Now, I'm actually not sure why these pawns were chosen, and let me show you why. Here's the board, and it's not going to stay flat, but we'll pretend it stays flat. And as you're putting these pawns on the board, you'll see that they cover up the room. Well, there's really no memory element to the game. You need to know what's underneath there. So during the game, you're constantly taking these blocks and saying, okay, what's underneath? Okay, what's underneath? Oh, that's what's underneath. And I just found that kind of odd. But beyond that, what I do like about the game is the fact that it comes with two rule sets. One's 8 and up, the other's 9 and up. I don't know how the differentiation between 1 year came around. But both of the games are actually pretty easy to play, pretty simplistic. In one, players have a handful of cards, and these cards will be showing the different colors involved in the game, and they are trying to get rid of these cards as quickly as possible by moving around and landing on the right number so they can discard the cards of that color. At the same time, they will be cursing a specific color, which will cause cards of that color to go into the other player's hands, making it harder to get rid of your cards. But basically, it's a race to get rid of your cards. The other version of the game, the 9-player one, involves players running around the board, moving around the board, trying to get different color cards into their hand, drawing colored cards, and then playing them in front of you. And then when you have 5 of one color, then you win this card. And what you're doing is you're trying to win more than one of these cards to win the game. But if someone else gets 5, then they steal it from you. And this game I actually liked quite a bit better than the other one. And both of them are interesting because they'll use these spaces here. The amount of symbols on the space tells you how many cards you can draw when you're on its space, tells you what color it affects, and tells you how far you can move, depending on which of the two games. And I suppose if you played both the games often, you would find yourself confused because there's a few small differences concerning movement in the different games, and enough similarities that, you know, they're not the same game. They're not even really a variant on each other, but they both use the same idea of moving around and using these cards. But still, I mean, I find both the games interesting. Both of them have a pretty good player interaction. The second one, where you're trying to get these cards, you know, win these cards over, is a bit of a race, because if I'm going for blue and you're going for blue, as soon as I get 5, I get the blue card, and if you have 4, those are all discarded, and you have to start over again before you get 5. And I might even build up a decent amount of these myself, again, just to keep the card. And then there's ways you can go around, and you can put these black curse tokens on different sections of the board, causing other players a pain in the neck trying to stop them. And there's, like I said, a good deal of player interaction and moving around. There's not a lot more I want to say about the two games themselves because they're very simple. And I don't want to even mix up when I'm talking about the games to you guys, because, again, I'll find myself talking about rules from this one for this one. But again, the gist of one is to get rid of all the cards in your hand, and then you win. The gist of the other one is to make offerings or whatever, you know, get rid of cards at different spots on the board, and then when you do enough of that, then you'll win these cards, and you're trying to win multiple cards so that you can then win the game before other players will win them back. And the second game, winning the cards, has a tendency where it could go on for a pretty long time. The first game does have a set ending, and the first one is a little bit faster. However, the second one, trying to get the cards, to me, offers more strategy. Both of them, the game says from 2 to 4 players. It's not a good 2-player game. I don't enjoy it at all with 2 players because there's just not enough interaction. I move, you move. But when there's 4 players, you're watching all the different people, and it becomes a fun little gem. This isn't great strategy. This isn't something that the theme doesn't work at all. It's very abstract, but it's interesting and it's fun. And the components are good except for the covering up blocks. But it has 2 games, and both games work. So if you're looking for 2 games in a small box for a small price, and that work well with children, they'll understand the rules to these, and offer some interactiveness while playing, discarding, moving around, the whole board idea is pretty neat. And so I'll recommend Temple. I think it's not a great game, but it's a good one.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.